Joining me now is the Green Party nominee and candidate for President Jill Stein. Dr. Stein, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Pleasure to be with you.
Jill, we are just 9 days away from the presidential election. What has been the focus for your campaign?
I think the American people are in crisis right now, a crisis of housing, health care, debt, student debt, inflation, you name it. And while the American people don't have what we need to survive with, both parties are squandering $1 trillion a year on the endless war machine. It's half of our congressional budget, which is going to conduct war on children far away. We are funding a genocide and lots of wars around the world. We have a bloated military which consumes half of our congressional budget. This comes down to $12,000 on average per household per year. So the American people have issues right here at home that desperately need support and attention. And that's the bottom line, and that's what we're hearing as we tour the country from Wisconsin to North Carolina to Texas to San Francisco. The American people are really, really hurting, especially on affordable housing right now. So, 60%, some are living paycheck to paycheck. So we can do this much better. Unfortunately, the two major candidates and their parties are bought and paid for by Wall Street and the war machine and, health insurance, big pharma. So that's who's getting the benefit of our tax dollars and U.S. policy. We need leaders who are going to be serving the people, not the 1%.
Dr. Stein, a Wisconsin super PAC with Republican ties, Badger Values PAC, has funded over $300,000 to your campaign. You've also accepted support from Republican allies to keep your name on the ballot across the battleground states. What do you say to those who argue your campaign is a spoiler working to help former President Donald Trump win the presidency?
So first, on the issue of accepting Republican support, we never accepted Republican support. People can drop off petitions and you don't know where they come from. This happens all the time. So coming into this election, record numbers of Americans were clamoring for other choices. So shouldn't voters have a right to choose in our election? What is democracy except the right to choose? And this kind of impersonation and dirty tricks, the Republicans and the Democrats actually are doing that all the time. So they can drop off petitions, and we only learn after the fact that they may have been tied to this Republican organization. But we never accepted such aid. After the fact, we will have to take steps to account for that. But this isn't like some plot that we were a part of. And an attorney of theirs who filled the role of bringing a case to court, he was part of a large multi-partisan group that was adjudicating critical issues for the American voters. Having choices in an election is not a partisan issue. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party has made it a partisan issue in their efforts to throw choices off the ballot and deny the American voter a choice. And to this question of spoiler, who spoiled the election? Competing for votes is what is supposed to happen in a democracy.
Jill, I want to say on that conversation, the Green Party, your party, has petitioned to be on the ballot in states where your party did not have automatic ballot access. Here in Wisconsin, the state Supreme Court dismissed a lawsuit filed by the Democratic Party to have your name removed from the ballot here. What do you think is the significance of that decision for your campaign and more broadly for voters?
I think the significance of that decision is that the people of Wisconsin have a choice. Right now, the Biden administration is leading the charge on a genocide in which we are seeing women and children and innocent civilians massacred every day. And for many Americans, this is a red line. And we encourage people, do not be talked into genocide. Do not be talked into voting for it, because if you vote for it, you are endorsing it and you are enabling it. And it's not a question of Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Both, in our view, are greater evil candidates. There is no lesser evil candidate in this race.
And I just want to clarify that Vice President Harris has spoken out in support to Israel's right to defend itself, but is not in support of the lives lost in Palestine. But I do want to go to my final question, Jill.
Well, if I can just add to that, while she says she doesn't support, she doesn't do anything. She has agency here, as Ronald Reagan showed. The Biden-Harris administration has complete agency. This is exactly the problem. They want you to hear that propaganda, but not hear the fact that actually they can stop this in the blink of an eye. Within hours, it can be ended. It is their choice, and it's also their choice if they're losing the support of the Muslim American and Arab American community.
And I want to get to my final question here, Jill. You ran for president in 2012 and 2016. This is now your third bid for the White House. How do you respond to claims that your campaign has no clear path to victory, and those who may still be questioning why you and other third-party candidates have chosen to stay in the race?
In the last race, in the last presidential race, do you know how many people chose not to vote? 1 out of every 3 eligible voters did not vote, mainly younger, of color, and lower income. There are a lot of people who meet that description. In fact, that's 1 out of every 3 eligible voters. It's strictly a question of getting the word out. This is why the Democrats are working so hard to silence our campaign, to keep us off the airwaves. In fact, we did an interview yesterday with Tavis Smiley, who told us on air that, in fact, the DNC, which hired an army of lawyers to throw us off the ballot, when they didn't succeed at that, I should say at the same time, they've also hired infiltrators and spies to try to mess up our campaigns. And you know what else they've hired? They have hired whole nonprofits to do opposition research, to dig up facts, and to try to twist them in order to try to disparage and criminalize our campaign. So that's where these smears are coming from. And what Tavis Smiley told us on air was that, in fact, the DNC had sent him the questions. And I would ask you the same thing. Did they send you these questions? Because that's what they're doing. They are sending these questions in order to try to bias the press. The press is supposed to be free. The press is not supposed to be taking marching orders from the Democratic Party. And I think we can be sure that that is happening now by the droves. So the American people are being denied what the press is supposed to do, which is to be a watchdog on power, not a lapdog to power. Our First Amendment is first. That includes free speech, and it is also a free press.
And we independently draft all of our questions here in-house for Capital City Sunday. But again, Jill Stein, Green Party nominee and candidate for the 2024 presidential election. Jill Stein, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time. Really appreciate the conversation.